Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and stand for the singing of Canada. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Record of attendance. Jody, you're good there?
Worship.
Go ahead, Council.
She did be excused for illness.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Anybody have declarations of conflict of interest? Good. Okay, so I skipped a little bit ahead. Under number 2, there is written an acknowledgement that we're on Mi'kma'ki, the traditional ancestry territory of the Mi'kmaq people. So I put it on there for discussion, but basically I simply want to, I've reached out to Chief Robinson. We had a little bit of a conversation and we're going to meet again. We just want to make sure that we do this right and engage in conversation with the chief and our people. So we will, I'll keep you updated on that piece.
Thank you, Worship.
Approval of agenda. Any additions or deletions? Okay. Moved by Councillor McLeod, second by Deputy.
Question, Your Worship.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay. Approval of minutes. Town Council, May 17th.
So move, Your Worship.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, May 23rd.
So move, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. And Town Council, May 23rd.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks. Okay, business arising, terminal funding. So, CAO, do you want to take that?
Yep, Your Worship, we would like to put an application in with the federal and provincial governments through their infrastructure program, a $9 million application to make improvements to the ferry terminal. And so I'm looking for a motion. It's in the package. Recommend that Council agree to fund 40% of the local share of the $9 million Phase 1 application for upgrades to the Yarmouth Ferry Terminal, subject to receiving 66 2/3% funding at least from higher levels of government and subject to the balance of local funding being secured from other sources, including the terminal's operating surplus if necessary.
Okay,
Second, Your Worship.
moved and seconded. Go ahead there, Deputy.
And Jeff, when they say improvements, can you just give us a little oversight on that and the discussions that we had with the Deputy Minister of Infrastructure Renewal? Because people think we're going to spend $10 million to regenerate or reinvigorate the existing building.
Well, that may in fact be part of the case. A study was done shortly after the restart of ferry service when the Nova Star was operating, and based on their schedule, the types of vehicles that they carried, specifically transport trucks in some cases, and their future projections. There was a concept developed that met their needs and met the needs of CBSA. The CAT operates a different schedule, different vehicle loads and different types of vehicles. And to some degree that affects the design, the footprint that's needed. And so we're working with CBSA and the operator to refine the requirements so that we understand those. We anticipate a $9 million budget is all that we have potential to work with here. The design that was done a few years back was a $40 million estimate. So this won't do the whole job. It won't be based on that concept, and it may in fact involve some reinvestment in the existing building. CBSA will provide their statement of requirements, and that is paramount importance because they've been operating down there on an understanding from the get-go that there would be future improvements to meet their requirements, and those improvements have yet to materialize. The ferry operator has very modest needs, but then there are some basic infrastructure things. Some of the wharf components, the passenger bridge, and the pontoon are all pieces of infrastructure that may need to be replaced. So with $9 million, there'll have to be some priorities set, and not everything we'd like to see get done will get done. So priority setting is important. And also, that's why this is referred to as Phase 1. Now, we don't know what the timing would be of Phase 2. You don't get that kind of infrastructure funding every year from higher levels of government. So we need to make the application and hope that we're successful, and then start planning on what the next phase will be. Whether it's that big or more modest, I don't know. So as far as the components, those are the things I'm aware of. Some modest needs for the operator. CBSA has some requirements and some key pieces of the basic infrastructure that need to be addressed.
Good.
Good? Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor.
I just want to say that this terminal is one of both as a council, one of our main priorities, and as a group, the Joint Council's one of their main priorities as well. This is an opportunity that we cannot slip by or let slip by, so just that we need to support this.
Good point. Thank you. Councillor Hood?
I want to make it clear that we're not authorizing, in case somebody might get it the wrong way, 40% of the $9 million. We're authorizing 40% of our share of 1/3 of $9 million. 40% of $3 million, our share. In case somebody at home heard us read the thing, it's 40% and heard $9 million and only heard those two numbers.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And just to finish up, this is a one-time opportunity to get that amount of money from that particular fund, and I think we should acknowledge the strong support we've had from our federal MP on this thing.
Go ahead.
My question would be on time frame. What kind of time frame are we looking at once it passes from our table to government?
Go ahead, CAO. September.
So this is the application process, and so the application is due next week, and so it depends on how long it takes for the government to review and hopefully approve. My understanding is that we would have until 2023 potentially to complete the work under this program. So not that we would want to take that long, but it does give us the opportunity to work around the sailing season, which is the best part of the construction season. So there will be a little bit of coordination will be needed. It may be that the work will occur over a couple of years.
Good. Okay, any more questions?
Question, Your Worship.
Questions been called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. New business, get involved Yarmouth projects. CAO?
Your Worship, I wanted to come back to an item that was referred back to staff, and that was the storage of solid waste in the front yard and under certain circumstances. And I wondered whether or not this was one of those kind of everyday issues that we might consider using the platform to try some ideas, to put out, maybe to gather some ideas and to try some ideas with the public before we come back as staff with a recommendation. So as we had committed when we started the platform, we wouldn't put anything on there without your agreement. So maybe a motion to use the platform to engage the public on the solid waste bylaw.
Councillor Cleveland?
Your Worship, I'd like to make that motion. It's a great idea. That's it's an opportunity again with the Get Involved Yarmouth system for people to have their say, and so it's wonderful. Yeah.
So I have a question. How do you, because we're only talking about those disposal units in the town of Yarmouth. So how do you, when they go on to the Get Involved, do they put their address in? Do they say where they live? I want to know what the people in the town think about the town issue. Sorry about that, Jim.
That's fine, no.
Okay, go ahead, CAO.
So with the platform, we do have the ability to collect information. People have to register to use the platform, and if that particular data is, if you want that distinction, then we can ask when people register to give their feedback or comment and so on. We can ask for their civic address so that you have that information. It won't disallow people from outside from having a say, but it would just allow you to have a look at maybe there's differences.
Yep, good. Okay, go ahead there.
I just want to second Councillor Wade's motion and say I think it's a wonderful other way to use the Get Involved platform. So I'm happy to support that.
Yeah, please, because we should be doing more than just that one.
Yeah, so that one will be the next one, and we'll bring more forward to you. This came up actually in a discussion with the folks at Bang the Table at a recent conference I was at, and they were quite impressed with the way that we've used the platform, and I expressed my concern that we weren't getting the level of engagement that I had hoped we would at this point. And they pointed out that we've been putting some pretty big matters on the platform, and we haven't had these kind of everyday issues that so he suggested to try something that maybe affects people every day, and this is something that had been recently referred to staff. So we'll try and mix it up and bring forward maybe some less grand ideas to put on the platform and to get people's feedback.
Yeah, and if anybody at this table has, if you have ever had an idea what you want on there, just let staff know. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Budget 2018-19. Go right ahead.
Get my document open. So your Worship, Council has worked with staff since January on the capital and operating budget. And at our most recent Committee of the Whole meeting, there was a motion to recommend the budget to Council as it was at that time. I do have a rate sheet to read off, and then if there are any questions about the budget, I'd be more than happy to answer. Okay. So the motion or the recommendation is that Council accept a budget with revenues in the amount of $17,721,309 and expenses of $17,718,879 for an overall surplus of $2,430 for its general operations for the year ended March 31st, 2019, which provides for the following rates. Residential, $1.66 per 100 of assessment. Commercial property, $4.28 per 100 of assessment. Resource general, $1.66 per 100 of assessment. And farmland at $2.16 per acre. Garbage collection and processing, residential, $190 per dwelling unit, up to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per building. In excess of 4-unit buildings is deemed commercial and at the owner's expense. Retail and other commercial type operators are deemed commercial and at the owner's expense. Pollution control charges, there's a list of these, Your Worship. I won't read them all off, but they are, the sewer rates are on the website and in your package, and they vary based on the size of the water service that feeds the property. The interest rate would remain the same as it currently is at 14% per annum and will be charged on delinquent accounts. The Council approves a transfer to the Capital Fund in the amount of $1,920,000, and that is the depreciation on our tangible capital assets, and that the Chief Administrative Officer will implement the inherent recommendations, administer and control the operating budget, and report to Council as appropriate.
Go ahead. Councillor Hood?
I'd approve the budget provided you change the word from delinquent accounts to overdue accounts. I think overdue is the appropriate word. Delinquent is sort of, I mean, people have reasons why they can't pay their bills sometimes, and to saddle them with the word of a delinquent account, frankly, I don't think we need to do that. So I would move that amendment to the budget.
Okay. All those in favor of that change?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? That's carried.
And you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. When it comes to waste collection, can you just tell us how we do that? We operate that on a break-even basis. Just explain that, please.
So, Your Worship, we look at certain parts of the operation where we charge user fees, and we always try to ensure that the user fee that's charged covers the full cost of the operation, so that it's clear to people, you know, sort of what the cost is per unit, whatever basis we're making that charge. In the case of solid waste, we do it per residential unit. So that includes the collection that everybody receives at curbside. It includes the processing of the recyclables, includes the processing of the organics, and we own the organic facility, and includes the residual waste, the clear bag waste. It also includes the special collection and disposal of the special collections we do for wood and metal and so on. So that $190 per dwelling unit covers all of that cost, and it is reflective. And so there is a slight increase in that cost this year because the costs have gone up. But we monitor that on an annual basis to make sure that that fee accurately reflects the cost.
Thank you.
Good. Gone up. I think it's gone up 19 cents a week or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, so the motion on the motion is to approve the budget. Okay,
Did
you
we
make
pass
that?
a motion to amend? Yeah, that was done. So now the motion is to approve the amended budget.
Okay. So who made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve
Thank
the
you.
amended budget.
Don, you seconded that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. Federal election polling station at Town Hall. Go ahead there, CAO.
Your Worship, we've had a request to allow the use of the building, specifically this room, for a polling station in the next federal election when it is called. I believe we've done that in the past. It is a public building that is accessible and suitable for that use, but we do have a policy that the town hall is for the town council and committees. So I just need your approval if we are to lease the facility for a day.
Okay, deputy?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd make that a motion that we allow the use of Town Hall for the next federal election, but I'd also like to make a motion that we put the money that we get for the rental of the property for the day in the Community Asset Donation Fund. So if they pay $200 or $250 or $175, we put that towards our asset donation program.
Okay, so we're going to deal with the first motion first. Oh, you want to do it one? Okay. You all right with one
I'm
motion?
good with that, yep.
Okay, and I have a seconder, Councillor Cleveland. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hood.
I'll make a motion that we approve it subject to a stipulation that the federal government remove from their application process for student funding the offensive section that requires people of conscience to sign a declaration that they support abortion.
Okay, so now we're in a little
They
corner.
want to use our facilities. It's the same as them trying, you know, they don't want to fund Camp Peniel or somebody like that,
So-
or the sawmill.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded.
Did my motion get seconded?
No, yours didn't. Yours didn't. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean it won't. Wait a second. In all fairness, it doesn't mean that it won't get seconded, but we have to deal
All
with the
right.
first motion.
Okay.
Who seconded Phil's motion?
Counselor Cleveland.
Counselor Cleveland. Thank you. Okay. So, okay, CAO? What happens here? Go ahead.
So, Your Worship, it's time for discussion on the motion on the floor. Now, somebody could propose an amendment to that motion.
I proposed it. I didn't get a seconder.
Oh, that was a proposed amendment to the motion. Okay, so if you don't have a seconder, that dies, and you're back to the original motion.
Please, somebody. My
The-
motion was that we make this motion conditional on the federal government removing the stipulation that requires nonprofit organizations in the country to have their officials tick off a box saying they basically support abortion rights from the application process, which denied the sawmill in Bangor. You know, they wouldn't sign that, and church organizations won't sign it, and Catholic organizations won't sign it, so they can't get student funding. And I think the federal government's out of sight, and this would be a great way to say, if you want our town hall, we're going to do to you what you're doing to all the charitable organizations.
Very diplomatic, Counselor.
Maybe, Your Worship, if Councillor Hood wants to withdraw that motion and do a separate motion saying that the government shouldn't be doing what they did to the
I'll
Bangor
withdraw
Mill.
my motion, thank you. Deputy
Withdraw it and then put another motion in requesting us to support things like the Bangor Mill and some of the other church-led organizations. I will support that motion, but not attached to the, because I want $200 worth of trees coming up. But I have
withdraw
no
my
problem.
motion.
But if he, I will support, if he makes that another motion after this, I will support it.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so he's withdrawn his emotions. He's withdrawn his emotions. Okay.
Question, Your Worship.
Okay, the motion is now to allow federal election to use, okay? All those in favor? With a fee, and the fee, the amount collected goes to the community asset? Yes. Okay,
So
good.
assume when people come in to vote, they're not going to have to tick off the thing before they can vote.
Not gonna have to take out what?
Tick off a box.
No, they don't have to do that.
Well, that'll be next.
Not if we send a letter.
Question, Your Worship.
Okay, question's been called, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried. Okay? Counselor Hood, you're on.
I'm feeling the heat.
No, don't feel, I'm gonna tell you what, you wanna send it, if you wanna, I mean, I have no
I-
problem setting.
I want to make a motion about that. You know, this is serious stuff.
Can we
and
send a
I-
letter to them?
And I think we should send a letter to our MP, I think, telling them, it'll be my motion that the council send a letter to the MP, asking the MP to press upon his government the need to rethink next year's process when they're applying for student grants, and rethink the whole issue of putting people of conscience in a position where they have to vote for something and hold their nose because they don't believe in it to get student funds. That's my motion.
I'll third it.
That's my
Okay?
motion.
We good? Question's been called, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Nay. Okay?
Thank you, including the nay guy,
Why do you-
because it's,
Why do you say nay, can we ask?
thank you, Council.
Okay, good. All right. Reports, council advisory committees. Deputy?
I think, Your Worship, we took care of that
We
a
did.
couple items ago, and that was the only thing at the Committee of the Whole, Your Worship.
That's the budget. Thank you. All All right, Planning Advisory Committee, Counselor McLeod. Go ahead.
As a result of our public hearing earlier, I move to amend the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw and vendors bylaw to define food trucks that operate from one location as a separate use from seasonal retail use and mobile vendors to permit them to operate year-round, but requiring a vendor's permit with an annual cost as outlined in our planner's report.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Second item, Your Worship, I move to amend the land use bylaw to reinstate standards for parking areas and delete the redundant section for site plan approval in the comprehensive development zone as outlined in our planner's report.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question, Your Worship. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, Counselor. Citizen Advisory Committees, Police Advisory Board. Counselor Hood, that would be you.
Worship, conducted a police advisory committee meeting on May 29th. Had regrets for the mayor. In her absence, I act as his chair. Dave Saxton, Sonia Ryan, Staff Sergeant Michael Lacroix, and Recording Secretary myself, Recording Secretary Christine Blake and myself. We have minutes that have not yet been approved by the committee, but they were circulated earlier. And I must commend Christine Blake for her minute keeping. I just got them last night, but they're very well done. Maybe the citizens should know that the Police Advisory Committee is a committee of counselors and some staff members who meet with the chief on a regular basis every 2 to 3 months. And the chief presents various statistics and reports in considerable detail, the activities of the department, and our function is to monitor those activities and, if necessary, report back to council if there's any questions. We had an impaired driving analysis showing a topographical map indicating areas of the town and county where impaired driving is occurring. It was reviewed by the committee members present. It was noted that heavy occurrences were pinpointed to high population areas and bar restaurant locations. We have a member at the present time in Florida training for drug recognition expert. And I've known Staff Sergeant Lacroix even as a prosecutor at one time, narcotics prosecutor, and he knows the business. He knows that activity. He's very concerned about the difficulty we're going to have in enforcing this new law that's been imposed on us by the federal government. So anyway, we had a very vigorous conversation about that. I won't go into all the other details, but I think we were an hour and a half in our meeting, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. We talked about traffic priorities. We talked about an important issue, which is the Rcmp auxiliary program, and that's the point of what we're discussing tonight. In their wisdom, the Rcmp reviewed the program. We know our long-serving members here, some of it who have been with us for upwards of 30 years. It's been an excellent program. The Rcmp had an incident where an auxiliary program somewhere, constable somewhere out west, there was a bad incident and the auxiliary was part of the problem or received injuries or something. Anyway, as a result, big federal investigation and all this and that. And so they've revamped the whole program into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is very much like the old program. It's a ride-along and traffic control duties. In other words, the auxiliary constables accompany regular constables and help them and assist them in performing the duties. They would do things like at an accident scene, doing traffic control, that kind of thing. And that's what we had here. Tier 2 is they go on patrol. They're in uniform, but very limited involvement, whatever that means. And Tier 3 is no uniform, no patrol, mostly clerical and school. It was up to the provinces to decide which tier would be applied in Nova Scotia. I think from our committee's point of view, and regretfully, our province decided to go with Tier 3. And that pretty much eliminates the program here, which brings me to the point of what I want to have to say. So, Councillor Lacroix indicated that he has some presentation medals and so on. We want to recognize, have the council recognize the service and devotion that these constables have performed on behalf of the town. So it was moved by Dave Saxon and seconded by Sonia Ryan to recommend to council that a ceremony be planned to have the auxiliary members of the Yarmouth Town Detachment recognized with the presentation plaques and medals for their service to the town. And I so move.
Moved and seconded. Keep going.
And with that, Your Worship, perhaps we would task yourself with coordinating with Staff Sergeant Lacroix a suitable event for this to happen. Our auxiliary members, I had a list of them. Most of us know who they are. For one reason or another, I think when I printed this, I didn't get it. I'll leave that out anyway.
Okay.
Some of them might not like me, but
Yeah,
and just so that's the motion, and I have one more comment, and then I'll be finished with this report.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary?
So
Carried.
just to give you an idea right now, on the human resources side, you know, the Rcmp is a large organization. They have, and as such, we have members who occasionally are on paternity leaves, maternity leaves, sick leaves, bereavement leaves, and all the rest. At the present time, the Yarmouth Town Detachment has a total of 18 members. These members consist of 1 staff sergeant, 2 corporals, 2 GIS investigators, 1 community policing officer, and 12 constables. For that, it costs us just around $2.2 million, within $100,000 of what it costs us to have 8 firefighters and 4 dispatchers. That's my report.
Thank you. Good?
Good.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, we are on. Police Advisory Manager. Questions for committee chairs? Anybody have any questions for committee chairs?
Like that, Sean?
I just wanted to, okay, go ahead and then I'll mention something.
Yeah, maybe to the CAO, Jeff. I think several months ago, we had a motion about a community use of South Centennial School, and we had the Boys and Girls Club in there after their flood and their last years. Or can we put that maybe on the next committee of the whole, maybe to
I had a group come in and
ask about that?
yeah.
Okay, so we put that on the committee of the whole, maybe have a discussion about that, because I know I had another question about the high school, but then another question about, I think it was at Leisure Services, Councillor Cleveland, about the future use of Center Town School. When that happens, yeah. And the other thing, Councillor Hood, is you'd be happy to know that the basketball nets are installed and up. I think the holdback on that was the welding portion of it, with the fishing industry being at the end of the season, that they were doing some fishing equipment, and then they did the basketball nets right after that. Yes, they look very good. Yeah.
Who looked after that?
A combination of Frank, I think Todd helped a little bit too. Frank and Todd.
The welding was done by someone, though, for free.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure.
Is it Mr. Pache over there at Acadia?
Right.
Yeah.
think it was
We'll get Frank to do a report on that.
Yeah, next to me the whole.
Okay, you can. Go ahead.
I want to pick up on another issue that's kind of serious, and I mean, here's what happens. I think it's been 20 years that those backstops were rotten away like they were. And what we often do when we get involved with disputes over soccer fields on the school premises and these kinds of things is, well, it's not our responsibility. And you pass it over to the school board, well, it's not our responsibility, or we don't have the funding, or it's the principal's money, he's got to look after it. All this bucks, you know, no one ever grabbed it and get it done, you know, just get it done. And
But
this time it got done. I commend our recreation people for getting that done.
Yeah, we paid for it, though.
We paid for it, I know that, but the point,
It's a provincial school, it's a shared recreational department, and we paid for it.
and people from the county use it too.
Yes.
But at least they're paying for it with us, I think, am I right? No, we paid for it, all
We paid
right.
for it, the town paid for it.
This doesn't matter, we got it done.
And that was also discussed. We had a long discussion at the Leisure Services meeting, or Yarmouth, is it Yarmouth Recreation now? Yarmouth, we had a long discussion about that, Yarmouth Recreation, and there was a lot of passing the buck, it's not ours. And like Councillor Hood said, it's like time somebody just grabbed the bull by the horns, we paid for it, and we got it done with help from Frank and Todd, right? And that's the number one thing, is get it done and make sure it's safe for our citizens and our children to play on. And I think we have to have a discussion with Steve Stoddard and the people at the school board about some of the other facilities we have, because there's going to be some other things that'll be turned over to us, so. But
Well,
that has been discussed.
Okay.
It was a very small amount of money for a very well-used facility.
Although that's, and I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Just the little small bits of money that we
Yeah.
take on, they all add up in the end,
Yep.
leaving us with a $2,400 surplus.
Wait on that, can you look at him? Don't look at me.
Go ahead. You're next, Councillor Cleveland.
I agrees with him. Anyway, no, I just wanted to say that this is one of those situations, and it's true. You're absolutely right. But nothing was going to be done otherwise, and it had to be done. And that's an area that gets used a lot. It's a valuable part of the town, and it's true. That discussion needs to be had. Somebody needs to take ownership of these kind of things. And I think there's a disconnect right now between the province, the school board, and us when it comes to these kind of things, because a lot of times with these facilities, they're school facilities, but they're not being maintained in the way that they probably should be. And look at the back fields behind the high school and the state of what those were, the basketball courts until they were fixed. And these are areas, we're going to end up with that whole area eventually. We know it when it comes to the central school. And really, it's time to take ownership of those kind of things now.
Go ahead, Councillor McLeod.
Just a general comment. I noticed in my walkabouts that the South End Playground, the Centertown Playground that we're talking about, and Beacon Park are three of the busiest parks for young and older people in our town and county.
They are. You're right.
Beacon Park's unreal.
I know, it is. So we good? Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
One more thing came up at Recreation, and it was dealing with the Milo Boat Place and the concern that it needs to be a joint effort between all three parties, knowing that it's used so much, whether it's the floor, or whether it's the bathrooms, or whether it's
What space?
the Milo.
Oh, Milo Boat Club.
Right.
Oh,
And
sorry.
that how a contingency fund needs to either be developed through a party of three, where we're taking on, could possibly be windows, it could be, but it seems to be when it's cutting time, or when we start tightening up on our belts, it seems that's one of the first things. And as years pass, stuff gets old, and when it's getting old, therefore the depreciation starts going down, and it only takes one accident for everybody to be sued.
Yeah.
So we have to take that into consideration. I think we need to move that to the committee of the whole meeting
I think,
to discuss it, and then maybe to our joint committee meeting.
Yeah,
and I
that-
think, actually, Your Worship, and I see Jeff had his light on, but I think Councillor Cleveland was going to do that at the next committee of the whole meeting. We'll have some information. I know Frank talked to our financial officer, Mr. Varon, on a couple of ways to fund some of these projects. There is a small amount of money for the accessibility part of the project at Milo Boat Club, so Councillor Cleveland was going to bring that up at the next committee of the whole. So, and I know our Mr. Varon had some comments to our recreation director, and I think with Frank here and with Jerry here, they'll be able to kind of go back and forth on what Jerry's thoughts were and what Frank's thoughts were on the Milo Boat Club situation.
Okay.
But that was another long discussion that we had at Yarmouth Recreation. But Councillor Cleveland was good.
But it wasn't because it's in the town, we do it all.
No,
It's
that
a
wasn't.
recreation facility,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Mr. Barron had some ideas
Yeah, good.
on how to fund and do some of the things. So
Good stuff.
it'll be an interesting discussion.
All right. So the only one I wanted to mention is the Western Wren AGM next Tuesday, the 19th at 4 o'clock at the Clare Golf and Country Club, if anybody wants to go. We are going to replace a couple board members and because their terms come up, they're staggered, but we're supposed to replace 3. And we have 2, so Mary Thompson and Nick Dion will be joining the Wren board. So she's still, even though we lost some good people, she's still the dream team, which is great. So anybody that wants to go to that, certainly invited to attend, 4 o'clock next Tuesday. Any other questions for committee chairs?
I have one more. So we had a Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park Board meeting.
Want to put your light on?
So we had a Solid Waste Park Board meeting the other day, and we considered the budget and so on. A lot of people won't realize that the Solid Waste Park is a happening business here. We provide services for the whole county, and everything from asbestos to contaminated soil to, all the rest. The recyclables get reprocessed there and all the rest. So I want to give you a couple of numbers. I want to tell you some of the kind of problems we have to deal with. So the place out there where we dispose of the asbestos is just about filled up. And if we're going to stay in the asbestos disposal business, we had to start planning to a new site on the site. We've been at that for almost 2 years now, and we're going through, I think we've had 5 different studies. We're now working on a bird study. We're following up on an archaeological study. They're looking for arrowheads and stuff. These things cost money, every one of them. We had another one was like for frogs and that kind of thing. This is a swamp, by the way. I rabbit hunted out there when I was a kid. It's not pristine forest, it's just scrub land. And the environmental studies and all the rest. We're going to get it done, but it's very difficult to sit around the table and see how much money we're spending on these reports and studies for consultants from Halifax to come down here and advise us, because the regulators are so constipated in their thinking. And was that polite enough, Council?
You're good to go.
I can see them sitting there just grinding. How can I enforce this law and make it hard for them? Anyway, I wanted to comment on that because when I heard about the bird or orthonon, it's a north or something, yeah. Meantime, we're strip mining the forest of this province to feed a darn biomass thing down there for Nova Scotia Power so that we can falsely say that we're meeting our emission standards and all the rest. Enough said of that. But I wanted to give you a couple of numbers, just for the fun of it. The budget of the waste park revenues are $1,752,000. That's a pretty sizable business, folks. And I looked at some numbers here, just on recyclables alone. There are some interesting numbers. The municipality of Yarmouth recyclables of Argyle recyclables are 49,300. Municipality District of Yarmouth are 70,600. And the town of Yarmouth recyclables are 50,600. Now, what does that tell us?
It's directly proportional.
I would say that is as close to proportional as it should be. It means each of our people are doing about the same thing in terms of their efforts to help the recycling work, and it means we're all just about paying our fair share. That's an interesting number. I want to compliment my other colleagues in those two councils on this one. We're probably going to be the only one, but we'll give them that. But seriously, this is a serious business out there, and it's all in an effort to meet our obligations as stewards of the environment. And it would be a hell of a lot easier if we didn't have an overzealous Department of Environment hanging over our heads and hassling us over our compost facility on the other end, of which I want to talk more with the CAO about and you guys later, because I think the route. And on that topic, on the compost issue, I'm pleased to report that the town of Yarmouth had 2 victories in court this week, and I'll say no more other than say good work, Mr. Prosecutor, or defense lawyer.
Good job.
You earned your cookies. Good job.
That's my report.
Thank you,
Thank
Counselor. Okay, there were no additions. Approval of invoices, please.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Date of next meeting, July 12th. May I just ask a question? I think we're one of very few municipalities that meet in August.
No, we've already had that discussion.
Okay.
We'll keep meeting in August, Your Worship. Mr.
Tried.
Roberts doesn't stop for August.
Well, I just thought I'd ask again.
We're just friends, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Deputy has nothing else to do.
Well, on that topic, just for the heck of it,
Yes.
do we need to have a committee of the whole
Well,
in August?
if we don't have a committee of the whole, we don't have a meeting, so
Well,
We do.
it can all be brought forward to the meeting, whatever comes up.
no, we need a committee of the whole. That's where we discuss everything,
Okay.
mostly. Okay, we're good. All right, so we did in camera, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Okay. Oh, Joey, did you want to show your hat? Okay, come on, let's show your hat, bud. He's gonna, there you go, wave. There you go. Okay, good stuff, Joey. Nice hat, buddy.